we adopt and ratify Resolution 2012, which you adopted at your last meeting, because that will give you the opportunity to hear the public, which would probably be the right order to do things, and then approve the resolution saying that we're going to apply for the grant money. That's all.
Okay. Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir. I would move to approve the consent agenda with the modification on item 9. It's like 9.05 maybe, to adopt or ratify the resolution 2012. And also I believe Susan had mentioned that in the council workshop, she had put her, I don't need to do that right now.
We're just accepting the agenda.
Oh, my bad.
Not the consent.
Okay, scratch that last piece. That'd be my motion then.
Appreciate your effort.
Second. Mike?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion moves 6-0.
Public Works and Facility Reopening Plan. Rick Lanzer, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble speaking today. Public Works Director will present item. When he's finished, we will have discussion reopening the lobbies of City Hall and other buildings 6-1 or 6-8.
And I'm going to interrupt because, as you probably saw in the news, we have some late breaking news from the governor's office today. So everything that, maybe I should move a little bit. Everything in the packet that Rick's going to present here talks about the governor's plan and the phases, and those are now going to not be legal enforced phases, but they will be continuing to roll out when they think KDHE now is the time to move from phase 2 to 3. It just won't be a law that the police are able to enforce across the state of Kansas. The counties will have the ability, if they like, to put in health orders. I spoke to the county administrator tonight. He indicated Butler County does not intend to pass any health orders, but to promote the governor's plan, which she will continue to promote and they will continue to promote, but they will not enforce it legally through the sheriff's department. They will just recommend that. And so I think what Rick is going to present to you, what he's put together in your packet, is still an appropriate plan for us in terms of city facilities and deciding at what point we open up various things to the public and allow people to gather in our spaces, even if it's not legally enforceable. Certainly if you all have a different opinion, then we can discuss that for sure, but this is late-breaking 3-hour new information for us, and so there's obviously no change to the presentation in your packet from what we prepared for you on Thursday and Friday.
I do have a question for you, Jennifer.
Uh-huh.
If you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. Then understanding that it's just a recommendation, right? It's guidelines, recommendation. Same with the county. But from what you just said a few minutes ago when the question, if we wanted to be more strict and actually say you cannot, I don't know, go into a building unless you have a mask or that kind of thing, we do have the ability to do that and enforce it with our police officers.
Certainly. What you would need to do is you passed the ordinance earlier this year allowing you to make health orders. We would want a recommendation from our health board for you to make that determination, but this is an appropriate action in the city of Andover. But in the absence of a health order from your county, you could enforce law in the city of Andover to protect the public health.
Okay, and I ask that not saying that I agree or think that is something that could happen, but one of the things, one of the reasons why the health board was put together by us is in case we have unique situation that happens, it gives us the authority then to make sure that we take care of it, right? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Council, the only thing I want to cover on page 1 is a couple little bullet points up there about having a plan. So we developed a plan, we're trying to implement the plan, and we will maintain and revise the plan as things come up. I'm sure things will come up sometime down the road that we did not anticipate. On page 1, that's really the only thing I want to talk about tonight, unless somebody has something that they would like to talk about. Really, what I want to talk about is facility strategies in regards to like this chamber here when we have meetings. We plan on using a Verix 250 set fixed fogger that we got from, well, he's right behind me. The fire chief was so gracious to let us borrow the one that they'd gotten. We can't seem to find it online right now. It will disinfect, and we can do this room, we can do the lobby after we're open for public meetings and so forth. We also plan on doing that to our rental facilities in between rentals. So we'll take a little bit more time, it's a little bit deeper cleaning, but we feel like that's the appropriate thing to do at this point in time. On the playgrounds, when we're going to move to phase 3 or 6-8 or later, we were planning on power washing that with what we call hot seat power washer, which uses hot water. We have to transport, in some cases, we have to transport the water and the power to the site because it does use power, not gas. We would use a Dawn dish detergent or something like that. Basically, that may not be the actual Dawn, but the reason we're going to do that is even on CD's website, they say don't use any of the harsher chemicals. It'll cause more damage than good and so forth. And quite frankly, we just feel like that's the best way we can do it. That will take us about 7 staff hours a day to do. We plan on doing that at this time through the 22nd, and we'd reevaluate, see what's going on out there and so forth, and determine whether it needs to go on or stop. Excuse me.
Rick, do you know, are other cities doing that as well?
There's a lot of talk, but I haven't gotten anything solid out of anyone on what they're really doing yet. I think a lot of people are still trying to figure that out. We did a lot of research on the CDC's website and so forth. We felt like for a short period of time that's probably worth the effort to do, just to give some of that little extra sense that we're attempting to do some good here. We won't put any signage out saying that it's been disinfected, because that's not what we're doing. We're just cleaning it. We'll do it daily. Hopefully that helps some. Obviously, as you are smart enough to figure out that an hour after we've done that, if somebody climbs on there that has the virus, they can transfer that virus to that playground and go from there. Now, there's a lot of information out there on the web about sunlight, UV rays, and so forth that can help with that too. But yeah,
So
I don't know of anyone
7
else.
man-hours a day, that seems like a lot of payroll.
It's 35 hours a week, yeah. Well, we got 7 we have to go through and do, and by the time you transport it around and get it set up and do it. So it will be some time consuming. Now, obviously, if council wishes us not to do that, we can. And that's, if that's the council's feeling, we won't do it.
Another alternative might be to just open the big playgrounds and clean those and not the littler ones. If that time is concerning, that'd be another suggestion I'd throw out there.
So if you just did the non-neighborhood parks, that's 3 parks, or 3 playgrounds, basically. You got 2 in 13th and 1 in Central. Probably take us 3 hours a day to do those. We wouldn't have to, we have water available at each of those locations. I'm pretty sure at the third one, the one behind ACC, I'm not really sure. I think there's water back there too. So we wouldn't have to transport water for that also.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask a question. What services will you not be able to do fully by using these 7 hours a day cleaning?
So we will keep up with our maintenance duties, but what may have to get cut back is projects. If we want, we have some plans to do certain things, like I'm trying to think of something off the top of my head, and you kind of caught me there. But, we constantly have a list of projects we want to do, and some things like that would probably just have to get pushed back until time allows. But we would still have enough time, should have enough time to keep up with our mowing and weeding and trash and cleaning and those type of things. But if we wanted to do a project for enhancement project, so to speak, or maybe it's a flower bed development project we wanted to do, those items may have to get delayed until such time as we have the manpower to do it, staff hours to do it.
So when will the fences be taken down?
Well, that would be then starting on June 8th? Yeah, June 8th.
June 8th, okay. What do you recommend for the HOAs? They just on their own, or?
Well, we did assist one HOA in helping them get theirs up, but I don't know that we are officially making a recommendation to the HOAs.
I would say that I would be comfortable recommending following the governor's Ad Astra plan, just as Butler County is going to recommend. I don't know why we would have any different information than what KDHE's put together for that plan, but certainly I suppose that could be up for discussion. But I was told tonight Butler County will continue to push out and promote the governor's plans and phasing and recommending whenever possible people follow that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I do have another question too. If this is the time we can ask questions.
Absolutely.
Rick, you mentioned 35 hours a week if that's 7 days a week, but are we not going to then clean it on Saturday and Sunday?
No, we'll bring people in on the weekend to do it.
And then when you say reevaluate the effectiveness, how are we measuring that it's effective?
Well, and that's really, I mean, we could sample it. There's tests to do that. It's like $300 a test. I don't think we want to go through that process to do it each playground at $300, whatever cycle it is. I did do some research in that. They do have the ability to test surfaces for COVID-19. More along the lines of what I was thinking was we'd reevaluate what's going on in the world. You know, if we have another surge of cases and maybe we want to evaluate that. Do we want the playgrounds open at that point? If it's flattened out or decreasing still, maybe it's not needed anymore to do that. I think at that time, I just felt like, I think originally that might have been the phase out time. That's why we picked that time frame, and we would just kind of evaluate what's going on. Because as you can tell, in a week, a lot's changed.
Okay, thank you.
And one other thing I would bring up, I appreciate very much the idea of usefulness of the employees' time and efficiency and things like that. I will remind you, we have been paying some employees to just be home or to work reduced schedules, but we were still paying them. So in some ways, I think you could say that 35 hours you were paying for COVID time and people were not even being effective or efficient at all because they were home, because we were trying to keep people socially distanced. That's just shifting now to this next phase of the response, and they're cleaning instead of mowing or something along those lines.
Rick, are we planning to do any signage at the playgrounds, kind of just letting them know that there is still a danger even though the fences are now down and it's open?
Yes, I don't really believe in recreating the wheel whenever I don't have to, and we politely kind of stole from Johnson County, had a nice messaging sign, and we modified it for us just by changing basically our name and our website to go to. And we do have a sign that we will put out there that just talks about maintaining social distancing on the playground and so forth like that.
So there's 5 parks total, is that what you said?
We have 5 neighborhood parks, and then obviously the 2 major parks, the Central Park and 13th Street Park. So, and then on the outdoor restrooms, we'll continue to do what we're doing now, which is we're disinfecting or cleaning that daily. The dog parks, we will basically continue what we're doing now. We are doing a pretty decent job of keeping up on the dumpster that the dog waste goes into. So we don't have an issue there. As it gets warmer, that gives them more of an issue. And then rental facilities, I think I might have touched on this a little bit, but as we start opening back up the rental facilities, we are going to need a little bit extra time in between that, and we've talked internally about that, but we're going to do a little bit deeper cleaning in between rentals to do a little more disinfectant. We will use that fogger in between rentals, but that fogger, you really need about an hour for that chemical to set on there. They want it wet on there so it can adhere into the surface, I guess, so then if somebody contacts it later, it has a residual effect and also does a little more sterilization of the COVID-19 virus. Again, we were going to limit that to 45 people, tentatively, until 6/23. We talked about things like pickleball. You know, everyone wants to get pickleball started back up. 45 people is well under the number that's in there a lot of times, so we talked about doing some sort of call-in to get reserved and getting your name on the list and get in, and we'll have to manage that with our assistant rec director will help manage that. Does anybody have any other questions that I can help try to answer?
I don't know if it's a question or a statement, but in regards to neighborhood parks, to me, it would be all or none. You know, if we opened up a couple and not the others, I would not like the optics of that. Specifically, if one of them may be in the less high-end homes, you know, I have one in my mind right now, so I'd be inclined to say, hey, we open the city parks and that's it, not the 5 neighborhood parks, because it could cause us problems. That's just my opinion.
How long, Rick, how long does it take to actually clean a park? I mean, if we do Central Park here.
So, I think we did a test run on Central Park, and I was told it was taking about 40 minutes or so, but by the time you load everything up and move to the next one, so we just figured approximately an hour by the time you go around and so forth.
I'm with opening the playgrounds. I personally believe the cleaning every day is a little excessive, especially since we're not doing on Saturdays. I mean, that's the busiest day that the kids are going to do it. But if that's what, you know, we want to do, I'll agree with it. So,
I guess I misunderstood. I thought that we were hiring someone else to do it on Saturday and Sunday. No. I thought you
No.
were hiring out, okay.
So, we were just trying to find a way to, within our available time frame we had, to do something to clean it, because based on our workshop meeting, there's a lot of discussion about cleaning the playground and so forth, and we found that it's kind of an acceptable way through the CDC to power wash it and use it like a Dawn dish detergent soap, and it's a pretty efficient way you can cover a lot of surfaces quickly. If council doesn't feel like it's necessary, then we would gladly not do it, I guess, but I was just trying to accommodate basically some of the input we was receiving, I felt like we was receiving at the last workshop.
So a question would be, you're going to clean them in the daytime, obviously, and there might be kids there beforehand, and then you shoo them away for a few minutes, clean it. So JT, if we clean it, it's wet, maybe has a little soap that we forgot to get off, they slip and hurt themselves. Are we liable at that point for them because we didn't appropriately rinse off our cleaning solution, I guess?
I don't know. Troy, I would hope we would not rinse off our cleaning solution.
It could be an accident. Accidents happen.
I think that we would be covered by the Kansas Tort Claims Act, and I think we would probably have adequate insurance for such an event. I think that's a toss-up between ignoring their cleanliness versus 30 minutes of wet during the day. I think you can hear me.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll remind too, and this goes to that conversation, I think this was kind of coming from, at our last workshop, we talked about how the league's legal staff recommended doing something. So that it could be considered negligent to just say, playgrounds are open, go for it. But if we showed some measure of care, then it wasn't negligent. And that was somewhat where the league was coming down, and that for each locality, you have to decide, is that a sign that says, hey, warning, there may be COVID on this playground? Is that trying to wash it or disinfect it? Is that just shutting it down? Or is there something else in between all of those options that are comfortable for the local government? But that's kind of, that measure of care was really kind of where this was coming from.
So another question might be, at night, overnight, no one using the playground for many hours. I think everything I've read said COVID would die in that time. So really every morning the playgrounds are clean anyway. So what we're really doing is nothing. Right? I mean, I misunderstand.
I'm not a scientist. The last I read, it can survive up to 72 hours on steel was last I read, but
In the open air, no. Yes, inside of
there is
a
undoubtedly effect
lab.
of humidity and air and dew in the night and temperature of the metal during the day, particularly as it warms up, all of which can affect the survivability of it. I think that there isn't a known correct decision with regard to this. I think what Jenny is referring to is that in the phase of opening, it was specifically asked at the time, the KDHE and the governor's office, when do we open playgrounds? And they specifically said, that's up to you. You're the city, you own the property, you're representing the taxpayers, you decide when to open the playgrounds. And then there was a but, and it was in italics. We have all these guidelines businesses are going to follow to not infect people, and so just pointing out to you that a business would have to do certain things, including disinfect high-touch areas. They didn't say do it. They didn't say don't do it, and I don't think anybody's telling you what to do. I think you get to decide tonight. Will it harm the equipment to wash it every so often? I'm sure not. You're measuring unknowns here, and I don't want you to think that I believe you'd be at fault one way or the other. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. In a really good thunderstorm, it rains pretty hard, and that's probably going to wash it off too, right? If you want to talk about events that have effects.
So for tonight, are we trying to vote yes or no, or are we setting a standard that we're going to do this? What are we doing here?
I think staff has outlined a plan, and you can adopt that, or you can reject portions of the plan. If you think that isn't a worthwhile portion of the plan, you can direct that. I think this is sort of staff's best efforts at a recommendation. And if there are parts of that you don't like, you can either accept it as a reopening plan, but we're not going to do X or we're not going to do Y. You can, you're in charge, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, but here's where we're at, and I want us to keep in mind, every time someone comes in here to not want us to do something to their property, or to not accept a site plan change or whatever, we always talk about we have to make decisions what's best for the community and not play off our emotions. So it could easily be done that a lot of us have, we want them open, but is that an emotional decision for our families and our family friends, or is it a decision made on what's best for the city of Andover? So if we are going to vote to open them, yes or no, we need to sit back as a council and say, why am I voting to open them or not open them? Does that make sense? We can't vote off emotion or personal wants. We have to vote off, we have to live by the same standard that we make Green Valley live by or Cornerstone live by. We can't do it because Uncle Bobby lives over there or my neighbor's kids want to play on the playground. We have to do it as the best decision for the city of Andover. And so I will leave it at that.
I would respond a little.
Yeah,
I guess.
absolutely.
So first of all, I'm fine with it temporarily, personally. Going off of, though, the idea that we have to do what's best for Andover, which we always do.
Right, I agree.
The slippery slope would be, the safest thing to do is to lock everyone in their homes until this goes away. I'm just saying, it's I exaggerated to the extreme,
Right.
but that would be the cure until there's a cure. And obviously, we're not going to do that. So as we decide what we're going to open and not open in Andover, just like you said, the thinking has to be what's best for Andover, but what's best for Andover might be such a scary proposition that it's not really the best for Andover. That's just my 2 cents.
You have something, Rick?
Yes,
Oh,
sir.
okay.
I scratched
No.
my
I
ear.
wanted to throw something at me. Probably.
Troy, I
Mr.
agree
Rick,
with
though.
you as well. And I think the recommendation is June 8th. Is that right?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes. June 8th.
All right.
Such a short amount of time. We
It's
know that
a
we're just
week.
getting ready to go back into population. Let's
Yeah.
see. I think it's,
Yeah.
again, that's just me.
I wouldn't, to be
Let's see
clear.
what it looks like.
To be clear, I was not stating to go one way or the other. I was stating that we live by what we live by, because we do, as a council, man, we make the best decision for Andover every single time. This is a great group of people on this council, and we always do what's best for the city of Andover, regardless of how bad people are going to hate us. I wasn't saying what Mr. Price's, Mayor Price's view are, because Mayor Price's views are different than Ronnie Price's views are. I was just stating that we have to live by the same principles that we do on every other decision we make. That's all I was saying. All right? And you're absolutely right.
I wholeheartedly agree with everything you said, for sure. I think everybody does. Are we
So-
making a motion of some kind, or?
As long as you're okay with our plan, no. I think what we talked about at the workshop was a need for a plan. As long as we had a plan and we could verbalize that and share what we were doing, then, and so that's what Rick was kind of tasked with going and doing with the staff. I would like feedback on the City Hall lobby. June 1 was an original date we had looked at based on the phasing, and then the phasing changed, and then it would, so Phase 3 would now be June 8th. And then certainly today, although I don't know that it changes the phasing per se, it does maybe change the conversation a little bit. So staff has been back for just over a week. They are wearing masks while in the building, not if they're not in an isolated office alone. We'll continue to do that when we open up those windows for folks at the front. We do not have sneeze guards in place. We have nice looking glass at the front desk that does nothing for sneeze guards or security. I don't know, it looks nice, that's about all it does. So we're working on that, but we don't have the materials yet for a permanent solution. We can tape up plastic it doesn't have to look beautiful, we can make it work if you're ready to open on Monday and we're not yet there, or if you want to open before that, we can make that happen. I just wanted a little direction on the lobby opening.
There's not glass on those?
There is, it serves no purpose, it's like right here.
It's,
Even I'm taller than it, and I'm not very tall, so.
it's kind of made to discourage people from crawling through, although a skinnier person than me can make it through there. I cannot. But the opening happens to be at about face level high, so conversations can happen.
It's like a sneeze guard at a smorgasbord, so if you're very short, it obviously ain't gonna work, so.
Jenny, a question would be, are you right now, the staff, able to address 100% of the needs of the public as they would have it without them walking in the door?
You know, I feel like we're doing an excellent job providing the service to the public. The main questions we're getting is, can we have our garage sales, which they can. But in terms of permits and things like that, we really haven't missed a beat. We've continued to offer those services. I guess I would ask Les if there's anything he wants to add from the inspection point of view. But we've continued to do those 2 days a week.
3 days a week now.
And we moved up to 3 days a week, so I believe we're meeting that need.
We haven't had a full day of inspections yet, just doing 3 days a week.
So we are certainly not hearing complaints, Facebook messages, emails, phone calls saying, when are you going to open up that lobby? I want to come in and do my business in person. We've got the drop box that's available 24 hours a day if you do want to drop your bill off. So I wouldn't say we're getting pressured in any way.
Why would we ever open the lobby again? I'm just asking a question. I'm not saying that's what I think. I'm just asking the question.
I think that's more of this is a public building, and we need to open the lobby so people can come in and say their piece to whomever they want to say it to.
The mayor doesn't like drive-throughs, so I would rather come in and pay than stick my stuff in a box, but that's just one person. But I avoid, well, except for the last couple of months, I stayed it was coming, wasn't it?
I'd say word, man.
I don't like drive-throughs. I think they're impersonal, so that's one reason to open the lobby, so people feel like they have somebody they can actually talk to.
One thing I noticed on here, we're talking about city buildings. We haven't said one thing about the library.
So the library does have sneak guards in place, and I believe they're, I guess the word, I don't know if wording's right, semi-autonomous or whatever, but I think their opening plan is falling within their board is directing that. But we did already build them sneeze guards, and then when our material came in, it was solid colored material, so it doesn't work really good for seeing through. They shipped the wrong stuff, and it's really hard to get plexiglass right now or any of that stuff.
Yes,
So
it is.
we're trying to secure more material to ours, but we've already built their sneeze guards for them. We do own the building, so we did do that for them as part of our facilities.
As the library liaison to the council, I'd like to point out they are doing a phase-in situation. Sneeze guards, reserving the books, picking them up in the lobby. They have that foyer that's closed off, so that it makes it really manageable to secure your book if you wanted it without actually coming in. Then when you're returning it, they're making it the 72-hour rule. That room, I want to call it a multi-purpose room, off to the west, closer to City Hall, that big room, they're staging that with big tables to put the returns on and the date they came in. And so then they'll, 72 hours after they finish that process, then we'll go back on the shelf for rental. My family actually just used it this weekend. So my wife rented the books. They put them in the lobby for you to pick up under your name. You come in during the library hours. They are doing staff, minimal staff and staggering staff schedules with all that stuff. They're not doing any kind of fogging, though, I don't think, or anything at this time. I think that was kind of like the highlights of it, though. And then they're going to stagger opening, like the computer room and stuff like that. Maybe doing a list. They haven't really quite figured that out yet, but Tom's really good. The director of the library is really good at having a plan kind of lined out, so.
I think we should open the city building when you have everything in place for safety measures. I don't think that we should rush it. If you think we're able to get everything done appropriately for everybody, just to make sure that we keep the people that walk in here safe and the people that work here safe, wait until we get that. That's my opinion.
All right, any other questions? So,
I don't know that we need to vote. We'll just open the lobby when we get, because I don't have a date to tell you. It'll be when we get the materials. So I don't really have a date. If this plan's okay, I don't know, do they need to vote to approve the plan or just it was presented to them?
It's administrative, and it's the staff's plan, only if you want to change something. This is your
And
opportunity.
June 8th, the parks will be open.
Yes, sir.
Rick, I want to thank you for the effort you put into this plan and not knowing that they were going to change it 10 minutes before you walked in the door. I know it took time and effort on your part, and I really appreciate it. And staff, the things that you've overcome, not opening the doors, being able to get things taken care of. I wish more of y'all were here, but I really do appreciate it. It's not as simple as it seems from the outside, but I really appreciate everything y'all do. Our fire chief and our police chief, they'd had to make dramatic changes and have done so successfully. And I really appreciate the work that's been put in to make it the rest of us life as normal as it can be during these times. But I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. We are now to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve consent agenda?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to approve the consent agenda items 8.1 through 8.4 with the change that our Master City Clerk had mentioned earlier about being in attendance at the May 11th workshop. She was not, and so I would like to make that motion to approve.
Second that.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Okay. I now call agenda item 9, public hearing for City of Andover application for CDBG-CV Grant funds. This is a grant application for job retention with a maximum of $35,000 to $50,000 per job, depending on the size of the local business. The funds will be used for eligible working capital expenses, including salaries and wages, purchase of inventory, utilities, rent, insurance payments, etc., and could retain jobs.
Mr. Mayor? I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 2012 allowing us to do this.
Actually, we're going to do a public hearing first. Sorry.
Oh.
So we do need to do the public hearing.
Okay.
I know you all know about this program, but do you want me to talk a little bit about what we're applying for, just in case anyone from the public's here that wants to speak to the application? No? Okay.
No.
Well, in case any businesses are looking for funding, we are trying to get you funding, and so please give us a call at 733-1303 and ask for me, and I will visit one-on-one with any businesses that would like to inquire about the CDBG program.
Okay. Are there any questions to the city administrator from council members?
I do have one question.
Anybody but Troy.
I know. So who at the state level or what level approves our request for grant? Is it a state agency or a legislative body or?
It's through the Department of Commerce. So Department of Commerce oversees all CDBG funds. And so basically what's happened is $9 million from the CARES money has been carved out for this purpose to try to give to local businesses, and trying to figure out how to quickly go through some kind of selection process with that amount of money. The best that they came up with was to put it through the CDBG process, which typically pays for things like wastewater lines, sewer lines, fire stations, things in communities who low to moderate income is a big portion of this application. 51, and if you're applying for a community grant to pay for one of those infrastructure items I talked about, then 51% of your community has to meet that low to moderate income threshold. Typically, why we don't apply for a lot of CDBG grants is we're often not eligible as a community across the whole city, and so we aren't eligible for a lot of those grants. But for CDBG-CV, try to say that 10 times fast, it's based on the applying businesses' employees and their income level, not the city as a whole. So if a business has 5 employees and 3 of them are low to moderate income, then they would be eligible for this funding.
And is this part of the CARES Act, or is this, it is?
It is. It's
So-
CARES money that's going through the CDBG funnel. And I should mention too, HUD oversees CDBG programs, which is why that low to moderate income requirement is placed on it, that all HUD money has to go through that low to moderate income threshold.
Did the legislators take all that money out of Governor Kelly's hands, though, when they made their last minute? I understand, or I read that 1-point-something billion dollars that was earmarked for her to be able to use for these types of projects, or because of COVID, they wrestled it out of her hands in this last vote. So I guess my question is this even still a thing?
I think this is still a thing. I have like 5 million emails about it when it was announced, and I haven't gotten anything today or since the legislature met last week to say that it's now frozen or not happening. So there is so much federal money passing through and money being passed from CARES and this program to that program. To be honest, it's hard to keep track of it all, and I'm not 100% on top of it because it's impossible. But I don't believe that this program has been frozen or stopped. It was very clear when they ran out of PPP money. It was very clear when they ran out of the SBA funds. There's been no notification from Commerce to not apply for these funds. And because of the public hearing notice that is required, no one was eligible to apply yet. So it wouldn't be possible that they ran out of the money yet. So I think they would let us know if it was not an option any
Well,
longer.
it was pretty quick that what just happened, and I guess I don't have faith in our legislators at this point anyway to handle any money. So we'll see what happens. Thank you.
And I do need to back up and correct myself, even though it might be too late, I'm going to do it anyway. Would anyone like to welcome them? We would like to welcome anyone interested in the agenda item to now make public comments. And if there's none, going once, going twice? Okay, thank you. And I apologize for that misstep. Hearing no further comments, I hereby close public portion of the hearing. There will be no further public comments unless the council wishes to question to clarify information. The governing body will now discuss at the bench the grant application. Did we do that already?
And this would just be the point, I think, where we need that motion to adopt and ratify resolution number 2012, if you should still be interested and supportive of the city applying for the CDBG-CV money.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I move on the motion I had said in the wrong timing earlier.
Homer seconds.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. And we are to 10. GOB Series A 2020 public hearing. I now call agenda item 10-1, public hearing for general obligation bonds Series A 2020, levying special assessments as a part of the process of development in Andover. Tonight, we are having a public hearing in order to give property owners the opportunity to speak to City Council regarding their special assessment that should have received notice in the mail. The subdivisions which are part of the bond sale and associated special assessments include Prairie Creek 2, Prairie Creek 3, Cornerstone 8th Edition, Prairie Point at Cornerstone, and I don't know that word, and Summerfield.
Herman.
Huh?
Herman.
Okay, Herman, Summerfield. The improvements made in each of these subdivisions were initially requested by landowners. JT, as bond counsel, is there anything you'd like to add before we open this hearing?
No, Mr. Mayor, I think you did a nice job. Everyone has received the notice of what their special assessments will be. The final costs are known. The action item after this public hearing is to levy those special assessments. So this is the opportunity, if there were any incorrect computations or anybody didn't like their special assessment, this is their public hearing to so advise you.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions of bond counsel or staff before we open this hearing? We would like to welcome anyone interested in this agenda item to now make public comments. Please come to the podium, give your name, your address. Comments from individual members of the public will be limited to 3 minutes. Does anyone from the public have any comments they would like to share with the governing body? Yes, sir.
My question is part of this, the Prairie Creek, excuse me. Prairie Creek 3 assessments. Just talked to several of my neighbors, and they're all understand that why show up. It is what it is, you know. And I thought, well, the fewer the go, nobody be asking any kind of questions at all. So that's why I'm here tonight. Anyway, I think, like I say, most people agree, that homeowners agree that there was going to be a special assessment at the time, and I would just like to know how the amount of that assessment was determined and how it was divided into, I'm not sure if there's like 35 properties at Prairie Creek, and if it was equal assessment or some other determination was made.
They were based upon equal assessments per lot.
Okay, so so all 35 properties are the same
That's correct.
assessments, okay. Okay, and this was determined after it's complete?
It is complete.
All the utilities are in, the roads are in?
Roads, everything is in. We do have to estimate a little bit as far as publication cost, some of the bond cost, but we usually are real close on our estimations on that. We've done it enough times that we're pretty good at it. And then that total cost is then divided by the number of properties.
Okay, thank you. I'm 3 minutes running more short. Maybe this doesn't apply, and so I'll just throw it out there. Most times, you know, taxes and everything that are assessment, something, they always have a value, and there's some depreciation that's involved. I don't know if that was considered, or it's not at all, not a question involved, that, you know, that we're doing this over a 20-year span, and is there kind of depreciation that's involved with this amount? You know, we're setting an amount based on 100% complete and good as new, whatever you want to call it. But, you know, 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, I mean, why, I guess, and, you know, that amount is always consistent for that period of time.
It is not. The developer in this particular circumstance asked for 20-year special assessments, and right now interest rates are so low that probably was a good idea. The city tends to resist 20-year special assessments and tries to keep them over a shorter period of time, because it is indebtedness for the city. You're basically using the city's credit card even though they're paid from special assessments. Depreciation is not a factor because these are city owned improvements. The street, the water, the sewer, and the city will be obligated to maintain them at large. So whether the street wears out at 15 years and still has 5 years of payment on it, or whether it wears out at 25 years and has been paid off for 5 years, the city has the obligation at that point, as a whole, at large, to repair those. So they don't typically take into consideration depreciation. What they do, what the developer takes into consideration, quite frankly, is what the monthly special assessments are going to be, and they try to be competitive. And then the city doesn't have to agree, but they ask, can you do this over 20 years, and what will the interest rate be? And will it lower it enough to where it's better than if we do it over 15 years, which would have a slightly lower interest rate, but obviously will go on another 5 years. In the current interest rate environment, I think both the developer and the financial advisor agreed that the best was to spread them over 20 years. The only thing I haven't mentioned is, after the special assessments are levied tonight, if a lot owner, if an owner did want to pay them off in advance and not have special assessments on their property, the property owners will get another notice and have an opportunity, if they want to pay them off in advance, to not have the specials spread against their property. Honestly, the city's credit card's pretty good. They get a pretty low interest rate. So I usually tell property owners it would not be in their best interest to borrow money to pay off their special assessments, but you can. And or if you had the money, you could pay them off and avoid the interest costs altogether. But to be fair, depreciation is not what they're thinking about. Some of those improvements, like the sewer, are really expected to last over 40 years. On the flip side, we'll be very lucky to get 15 years out of the street before it needs to have something done to it.
Right. Thank you. That was my next question about the overall maintenance and over the next few years. Last one. Has there been any consideration about, with the virus involved? I know there's a lot of, people lost jobs and stuff like that, and now we're considering, okay, now we're gonna tack on another, certain amount, several $1,000s to their already piling up bills and unemployment and how that goes on. Was there anything like that that's been discussed to there's some way, I don't know if you could waive, things could be delayed, like they're doing with, payments could be delayed or added to the next year, the 21st year. So, or, I don't know. But anyway, if there's been any consideration for something like that. And that's all I have.
Sir?
Yeah,
What's his name?
They have to be paid off.
So-
Go ahead.
I wanted to make sure they'd all been temp noted already, but they have been. So essentially, we have already given 2 years between when we've actually already paid to put the infrastructure in these neighborhoods. And so now we've used temporary financing to cover that for the short term, and now we need to go ahead and roll that into a long-term bond. So it is unfortunate timing, but it's where the timing somewhat just kind of fell.
And these properties are also in the NRP program, the Prairie Creek Third. So they're paying your taxes right there.
Not all of them, but on Prairie Creek Third, you're right that they're getting a property tax consideration through the neighborhood revitalization program. So that was something that was taken into account given the size of the special assessments. But to Jenny's point, the money's already been borrowed, the street's already done. Could you borrow money for a temporary period longer and put off the special assessments? The legal answer to that is tenuous. We'd have to say, yeah, because we're really not quite done yet, when I believe we are. But the problem with putting it off is we're paying interest on it now. And actually not at an attractive interest rate as we would get 20 years from now. So if you were to say, well, let's just put it off for another year and temporarily finance it for another year and then put them on the tax rolls next year, your crystal ball would have to be better than our financial advisors, because I think our financial advisor would say, you don't want to wait until next year to issue these bonds given what interest rates are today, because over 20 years, a small increase in interest rate can make a significant difference in the payment. But it is anybody's guess. I really want to answer your question. No, I don't think we've considered putting it off for COVID. I don't think it's come up, and I want to answer the question. And that's because it's kind of an automated process. Once the stuff is built and the money's borrowed, the city's got the debt, and we move it to special assessment, usually once every one or 2 years.
So when does it hit their?
This coming November.
They'll see it on this year-end's bill, and they can pay them like they can their taxes, so they can pay 50% and then wait and pay the other 50% in May.
All right. Any other questions? Sir, I want to thank you for coming. I appreciate your questions. I learned something myself, so thank you for being here. Hearing no further comments, I hereby close the public portion of the hearing. There will be no further public comments unless the council wishes to ask questions to clarify the information. I hereby close the public hearing. Would anyone like to make a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, wow. GOB Series A 2020 Special Assessments. J.T. Klaus, Bond Counsel, will present them.
So the next item on your agenda would be the ordinance that would actually levy all the special assessments for Prairie Creek Phase 2, Prairie Creek Phase 3, Cornerstone 8th Edition, Prairie Point at Cornerstone, and the Herman Summerfield improvements. They're levied over 20 years, and it would result in a levy being placed on these properties and a notice being sent to the property owners that would give them until July 6th if they should decide to pay all of their specials in advance. If they don't, we'll be issuing bonds after July 6th to pay these off over 20 years. I'd be delighted to answer any questions about the special assessment levy ordinance.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion. We're ready for motion, right? I move to adopt an ordinance levying special assessment against property in Prairie Creek Phase 2, Prairie Creek Phase 3, Cornerstone 8th Edition, Prairie Point at Cornerstone, and Herman Summerfield for improvements in said additions, and authorizing staff to send notice to property owners in such additions detailing special assessments and allowing such property owners till July 6th, 2020 at noon to pay said special assessments in full without incurring interest cost relating to debt issued for financing such improvements.
Thank you, Greg. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Shelby. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Jenny or JT will, man, I can't read. Get my glasses on, that might help, huh? 10-3, bond sale authorization. Jenny or JT will present this item.
And this next item just authorizes the actual sale of the bonds, which is scheduled for July 14th?
Yes.
Okay, so that tentatively, it is on the day of a city council meeting so that we can take that sale to your meeting that evening.
Mr. Mayor, I, Homer, would like to make a move to adopt a resolution authorizing sale of $4,400,000 in Series A 2020 general obligation bonds of the City of Andover, Kansas, and authorizing the City of Andover's bond counsel and financial advisor to prepare the necessary notices and documents to conduct such sale.
Mr. Mayor, before you take the second, I believe he said $4,440,000, not $4,400,000.
I believe you're correct.
I hope-
Yes, I did say $4,440,000.
Let's just know what he said. It's what's it.
440. And I'll, yeah.
Are we good?
You were good. Thank you.
Thank you, Homer. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We're on to 11, the Heritage, 1111 paving project bids. Les will introduce this item.
Back at your May 12th meeting, you tabled the bids on the Heritage First Edition paving project because the lowest bid exceeded the petitioned amounts. The developer is working on those petitions and the guarantees that accompany them. Wasn't able to get that completed yet, so we've asked you to table this again until June 9th to give them more time to prepare those documents.
Mr. Mayor, I move to table the consideration of the Heritage First Edition paving project bids until the June 9th, 2020 meeting of the Andover City Council.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. 12, Cornerstone 9th Edition, 12-1, Water and Sewer Project. Les will introduce this item as well.
The engineer has prepared the water and sewer project plans for the Cornerstone 9th Edition. Staff has reviewed the plans. The applications have been sent in to the Department of Health and Environment for acceptance. We feel that we're ready to bid that work for a bid opening at your preceding your June 9th meeting. We'll present a bid tabulation at that time.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the plans and authorize the opening of bids for the Cornerstone 9th Edition Water and Sewer Project on June 9th, 2020.
Thank you, Greg. Can I get a second?
Second, Troy.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 12-2, Drainage and Utility Easement. Les will continue on.
A portion of those water and sewer projects at Cornerstone 9th Edition traverses outside the platted area of the Cornerstone 9th Edition plat. The developer has prepared and signed a temporary easement to allow that construction until such time as it's replatted again in a future phase of Cornerstone.
Would anyone make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I, Homer, would like to make a motion to accept the separate instrument dedication of a temporary drainage and utility easement from Chestnut Ridge LLC.
Thank you, Homer. May I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 12-3, utility easement. Les will introduce this item.
Another portion of that same water and sewer project traverses outside of the Cornerstone development into the land owned by USD 385. Unfortunately, the developer wasn't able to get those documents signed yet. They're on the next board meeting agenda, so we would ask that you table this item until your June 9th meeting.
Mr. Mayor, I, Homer, move to table 12.3, utility easement until the next meeting, June 9th. Thank you.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Les. Now, Chief, Andover Fire and Rescue 2021 budget presentation. Chief Russell will present this item.
Yes, I will. Good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. I am the first of several, at least, I believe that word is correct there, budget presentations that you will have from the multiple departments. And I think by Jenny putting me in this position, she clearly wants to set the bar high. So I will do my best. My intention this evening is to answer the questions that you have. And if I don't have the answers, I want to be able to find out what your questions are so I can find the answer for you. So that's why I'm here. Let me make sure my pointer works. The nice gentleman back there did make sure that I turned it on. So thanks to your IT director, Craig Brown, we have, for the last several years, been using what we call the bluff slide, and the bluff is bottom line up front. So at the end of the presentation, you will have realized that Andover Fire is requesting a 5% decrease, which is about $83,000 from the 2020 total budget. There's a couple of bigger things, as large things, that you should hear from that. So the first is that it's a 5% reduction from the 2020 total budget. However, all the cuts are taken from the operating budget. So we cut the operating budget about 40% to be able to get the 5% of the total budget. The second thing you should hear from that is that this does not account for any personnel costs in 2021. So while there are no merit or COLA raises planned for 2021, we do have several employees that will have step or longevity raises. So we're going to go to the AFR actual budget. This is actual spending, and I want to go to the bottom first. These numbers do not always include vehicle purchases. I want to make sure that you have all of the information. So I'm going to try to point out where the vehicles are not included as we go through. So the AFR actual spending from 2015 to 2019, the one really big change that occurred here was in 2017 in January. We hired 3 firefighters. They were paid for 2 years by a federal grant. So 100% of those costs were paid for for 2 years. January of 2019 is when we took over the payments for those 3 firefighters. I like to talk about vehicles in this presentation because, as you all know, fire vehicles are expensive. I wish I had some way to have some influence on the cost of fire vehicles, and we certainly can be efficient when we're specifying the vehicles, but the price that they charge for the vehicles is the price that they charge. So we try to be really careful, but they are very expensive. They're ridiculously expensive. So on the left, you will see the vehicle count purchased. This is how many vehicles we purchased. In 2016, we purchased engine 16 and a Tahoe, the one that I'm driving. Those were purchased with bond refinancing proceeds. So we had some bonds out there. We were paying interest on those bonds. We were able to refinance them at a lower interest. That interest savings was then able to purchase those two vehicles. So those, and Donna will correct me, she has a shot collar on me if I'm wrong, but those would not have been included in the actual numbers that you saw earlier. Okay, there, I got one right. 2019, you purchased two vehicles as well. Unfortunately, they're still not here. Those are the two brush trucks. They were ordered. The chassis are sitting somewhere on a line that's Ford is building, and as I've watched the news with you, it looks like Ford has started their lines back up again, so your vehicles should be moving down the line now. We've moved from a target date of June-ish, middle of June, to, I just found out today, probably September. They said August, but I'm not going to tell you that because I want to under-promise and over-deliver. So we're hoping August or September we'll get them. And in 2020, you also ordered a vehicle that is not here, and it is just a piece of paper sitting on a desk. When everything gets started back up, they will start building that truck. And that is a staff vehicle for about $65,000. And speaking of spending, on the right-hand side, you see the numbers of actual monetary spending that we spent. So in 16, just under $700,000 for the two vehicles. 65 of that, what roughly was the Tahoe. 2019, just under $250,000 for two brush trucks, and in 2020, $65,000. So also vehicles in the fleet, also vehicles. Now let's talk about the entire fleet. So every vehicle you have in the fleet is accounted on the left for how many vehicles we purchased each year. You'll see your first vehicle, the oldest vehicle you have in your fleet is a 1998. That is engine 10. It's currently housed in Station 2. And it was purchased by itself. On the right, you'll see the purchasing dollars that were actually spent. Excuse me. In 2002, roughly 20 years ago, roughly 18 years ago, coming up on 20, we purchased 4 vehicles. There were 2 brush trucks and 2 tenders purchased that year. So that puts us in an interesting position when we're nearing 20 years age of those vehicles. We have 4 of them that are the same age. Fortunately, you've already accounted for 2 of those vehicles. The other 2, the tenders, we've spent some money, some considerable money over the last few years making sure that they're in good shape. And I would forecast to you, it's like throwing a dart on a wall. I mean, I'm no mechanic, but our mechanics agree that those vehicles are looking like they're in good condition. So we should continue running those for several more years. If you look over on the right side, you'll see the actual numbers. And in 2015, the little spot between 14 and 16, you'll see the one truck that was just shy of $980,000, and that was the ladder truck. And we'll talk about a little bit more about that in just a little bit.
The 98 was the ladder truck?
No, sir, the 98 was the engine, and in 2015 was the ladder truck, just shy of $980,000 for one truck.
Sorry, Chief, what's the longevity then on your truck from 98?
So we generally consider that engines are going to be around 20 for sure, and we hope to make 25. And on ladder trucks, we hope for sure to make 25, and we hope for 30.
Thank you.
And we're going to talk about it later, but let's talk about it now. So I think actually it's the next slide. Yeah, so we're here. Thank you for the segue.
You're welcome.
So we evaluate the entire fleet every year. Every spring we go out and look at objective data. So I don't want to come to you and say that I want a new fire truck and I'm your fire chief, so you should buy one. That's not how we want to purchase vehicles. What I want to come to you and say is we've objectively looked at the data, and this is what we find when we evaluate the fleet. So how do we do that? Every spring we go out and find out a bunch of different data points, and we plug them into a formula that actually comes from our American Public Works Association. So the Public Works Association has a set of formulae that they use to come up with an objective replacement point. This is their data, our data, their system. We've simply plugged our data into it. So to your question about how long a vehicle should last, we certainly want to do the objective evaluation, and that's the most important piece. The other piece to keep in mind is the National Fire Protection Association, or NFPA, that you hear me talk about a lot, says that has a standard. Let me talk real quickly about that. So as the NFPA standard is not a law and it's not a regulation, but we believe it's the bar that you will be measured against if you're questioned. So that's really how we believe the NFPA standards relate to what we do. The NFPA has a standard that says you will not ever have an emergency vehicle older than 20 years old. So we have to keep that in mind when we're evaluating the fleet as well. When we did the objective evaluation of your current fleet, if you see the point ranges at the bottom, you don't need to worry about what the numbers are. So if you're not able to see the numbers, they're in your packet so you can zoom in on them. Folks in the public looking on the screen certainly aren't going to be able to see the numbers, but they're available on our annual report, and we have them. If you want them, I can certainly share them with you. But what I really want you to see is the color codes across the bottom, and the top code is green, and that means the vehicle is in excellent condition. The second code is yellow, and that means it's in good condition. The third layer down there is qualifies for replacement, and the bottom one is needs immediate consideration. So those are 30 points and above. So out of your fleet of vehicles, you have 4 vehicles that are green, you have no yellows currently, and the rest of them at least qualify for replacement. The really good news out of looking at this data is this is current data. So brush 11, brush 12, and car 4, the top 3 vehicles, you've already replaced. We're just waiting on them to come in. And a little flash to the future, I'm going to request that you replace car 2, which is the next one down, next year. So that will take care of the top 4 in that list. Yes?
I know you told us not to look at the numbers,
Yes.
but I'm sure the council's understanding. I'm not understanding if the replacement points on Rescue 35 is 24.4 and under 19 is condition 1. Why is it shown to be in condition 1 as opposed to a good condition?
That is a mistake on my part. Thank you for catching that.
So there is one yellow line that is in good condition, and that would be Rescue 35.
Yes. Yep, that's an Excel mistake on my part. Thank you for that.
That's an excellent catch.
I just didn't want you to paint so rosy a picture you can't come back.
Thank you.
You want JT?
What changes have happened since 2014? This formula, the format that you're seeing is one that was requested by Councilman Tabor a few years ago, and this is what we've been using. So I continue to use it. And one of the questions he asks is, what have we done over the last several years? And a lot of this stuff is stuff that you've seen before because we've done it before. We've reported it to you before because it's over the last several years. There's some things that we really need to call some attention to. We talk about outputs and outcomes, and outputs is just data. It's just numbers, and it doesn't really mean a lot to us. And outcomes are those things that we can really understand emotionally and really make a difference in our lives. An output would be we decreased our ISO rating from 4 to a 3. The outcome from that is every person in the fire district who is within 5 miles of a fire station is paying less for their fire insurance than they were when we were in ISO class 4. So that's a positive change. The lower the number, the better the score. We decreased our turnout time and output from almost 3 minutes to under 2 minutes. We're 2 years, we're well into the second year of doing that, and we continue to make that under 2 minutes 95% of the time. That's an output. Let me tell you the outcome. The outcome is twofold for me. If you've heard me say this before, I'm sorry. I get a little passionate about it, and I will try to stay calm. The first outcome that you should think about is if your house is on fire. Of course, it's great to have the fire department show up if your house is on fire. It's even better to have them show up in a timely fashion so they can put the fire out and decrease the damage, or most importantly, make a rescue if that is needed. That's clear to see. However, if you're like me, even having been in this business for so long, you probably believe that a fire won't happen at your house. I will tell you, I believe that it won't ever happen at my house, even though the reason I have a job is because it does happen to somebody. It's just never going to happen to me. Let me put it in terms that we can both understand. Most of us, hopefully a really long time from now, are going to die. And if you have a family member stop breathing at your house, you want the turnout time to be as fast as possible so the firefighters can get there within 4 minutes to stop irreversible brain damage. So the output is from that, from the firefighters working so hard to make sure their 2-minute time is correct, is that we can save more people. And this is a great segue, thank you, Councilman Homer, to talk about the third bullet. By the way, I'm not going to do every bullet. Increased our code blue saves. We reported this last year, and I'm very thankful that we were able to report this again. Several years ago, if you stopped breathing in Fire District 1, you had a 95% chance of not surviving and a 5% chance of surviving. We have made drastic changes, and let me stop right here and say this is not the fire department's initiative. It is not your fire department that's making this change. The police department is involved as well, and emergency medical services are certainly integral in the process, but your firefighters are as well. We have been able to save over 30% of the people that have stopped breathing in Fire District 1. That is an output that we can all understand and certainly support.
Chief, how does that compare to the other fire districts in our county?
I don't have their data, but I will tell you that Butler County EMS has done a world of improvement over the last half decade or so, and their numbers are increasing throughout the entire county that's the wrong word, regardless of which fire district they're in.
Does any of the 911 help with that?
You know, I really think they do. One of the big concerns, I hope I don't go too far down the rabbit hole with you, but one of the big concerns from, we call them old heads, an old head like me, a dinosaur like me, I've been around forever. So one of the big concerns about the dispatching system that is used in the county is you take too long. I hear that a lot from my fire department, fire chief counterparts. You take too long. Just tell me, all I need to know is what truck to take and where to go. And I believe that, that's true. However, the dispatchers are also doing coaching. The important thing is hands on chest. So if you don't hear anything else, forget all this budget stuff and you hear, if you have someone who's unresponsive and you can't wake them up, put your hands on their chest and do chest compressions. So that's the important thing. Those dispatchers are actually coaching people who have no idea how to do it, and they're getting hands on chest. That's a huge piece to the 30% save rate as well. And then Councilman Tabor asked me, I think it was last year, maybe the year before, doesn't really matter. Why are your fire numbers at least not increasing? Your building fires. And if not increasing, they might even be going down. So the picture that I believe he painted was accurate. The population has exploded in the last 20 years. The number of people that visit our community has exploded in the last 20 years, and the number of buildings has exploded in the last 20 years. But you're actually running as the same number or fewer fires. Why is that? And the last bullet is, I believe, a huge part of why that happens. We've dramatically increased spending on public education and prevention, not just spending money, but spending time. We have gone through a strategic plan process since the first year I was here, and every year we talk about how can we do better at this. And by the way, that's not just your firefighters who absolutely work their tails off to make that happen, but that's also the folks in City Hall that are doing those inspections. That's also you, because you set the rules and make sure we have a safe community. But that is why our fire numbers stay low. We want to keep low fire numbers. Like I said earlier, it's great to have a fire truck show up if your house is on fire. Wouldn't it be cool if we could prevent the fire from happening altogether? That's what we want to do. So just some quick stats. They're in your packet. You have 19 full-time employees. You have a fleet of vehicles that still currently contains 2 retired police cars. We're going to get rid of one. We've had the mechanic go through them all and see which one would last for us. And It's not costing us hardly anything to keep, so we haven't gotten rid of either one of them, but we're going to get rid of one of those.
Do we use a local mechanic when you say mechanic?
Yeah, we do. We actually try to spread the business around unless there's a specialty need. So we try to keep everything in Andover if we can, and then the newer vehicles are warranty work, so they go to the warranty shops. Your newest engine just went for an interesting electronic repair last week, I believe, and went to Cummins on North Broadway. You have really expensive equipment. This is a very small list of the equipment. You know, the breathing air compressor is tens of thousands of dollars. The radio equipment on the second to the last bullet there, there's probably, I would estimate $350,000 or more dollars of radio equipment across the entire fleet. At least $250,000 of handheld radios and pagers. Thermal imaging cameras. You have multiple thermal imaging cameras, and they're $9,000 a piece. You have a lot of equipment in various pieces. 37 square miles for the fire district. And your fire station, your main fire station is at 911 North Andover Road. It was built in 1994 to house 0 fire department overnight staff. They did have 2 EMS folks sleeping there back in the day. Total area of the fire station is 12,400 feet. I think the discussion has been very accurate, and I will just come out and say I agree with the discussion about keeping the roughly 20 people we have working in City Hall and 27,000 square feet safe. I agree with that. I will tell you that it's a much bigger challenge at the fire station. So the 700 square feet, I left it in there because I didn't realize another mistake, JT. You would have caught it, but I'll catch it myself. I did not include, if we're talking about overnight staff, I should have included another roughly 400 feet. We have 11 people in the day and 7 people at night in about 1,000 square feet. It's tough to do social distancing with that kind of area. And this pandemic has really shown the inadequacies of your building. In 1994, when it was built, the population of the fire district was approximately 5,000. We ran about 260 calls. Our population for the fire district, we expect to be probably Lance will get my shot collar now, probably 17,000, 17,500, somewhere in there after the census. 261 calls then. We'll run about 1,600 calls this year, despite the efforts we've had to be more efficient at what calls we're responding to and which we're not. We had 17 vehicles then, and today we have 13 vehicles.
Sorry, Chief, to interrupt you again. On your previous slide, you had square miles of districts of 37. In 1994, do you know how much square miles it was back then?
I believe it was 36 then. I believe we've added 1 mile since then.
Okay, thank you.
That was before my time, but I believe we added the 1 square mile that is Flint Hills south of 120th in an annexation. So, almost done. Hang with me. So this looks at budget numbers, not actual spending. So budget authority. On the left, 2019 is blue, 20 is orange, and 21 is gray. On the left, you'll see contractual. This is we're paying someone money to do something. The middle is commodities. We're buying something from someone. And the right is capital. That's buying those big ticket items. So we're requesting a decrease of $83,000. For the contractual set, it's only a decrease of $900, despite the fact that we needed to add 2 different projects, $5,000 for the time clock scheduler piece, and we're adding a program we're following. Again, Chief Keller and his staff have had so much success with a program called Powered EMS to increase communication and that flow of information, especially around policies, which we're very interested in. So we're going to add that program. We're actually in the training right now. Our big decreases were in computer spending, radio spending, and building maintenance. Commodities, we're requesting a decrease of $9,100. These are largely maintenance decreases, and I would not be the guy to request a decrease in maintenance if it wasn't prudent, because I believe maintenance is very good money you can spend. However, it just so happens that we had two different vehicles, the two tenders that were built in 2002, had big projects that we had to do on them this year, and we inflated those two line items this year, and the plan was always to take those back down. So a large portion of that $9,100 comes from those projects. And then we're decreasing our capital request by $55,000. That is not all of an exhaust system, but the plan was in '21 to build an exhaust system. Very quickly, firefighters are 900% more likely to have cancer than the general public. It's important. You have made it very, very clear that you care deeply about the safety and health of the firefighters. One of the pieces of that is cancer reduction, and we have an exhaust system now. It was certified when it was put in, and we continue to maintain it, and it continues to operate. However, the technology has changed by leaps and bounds since it was installed, and we want to change to a new system that is a much better system and much more effective system. So we'll hopefully be able to do that soon. Lieutenant Smith is working on grants, and my grant slide wasn't in here. Oh, there it is. How did I skip it? I'll do it really fast. He's working on grants. As a matter of fact, on the left side, you see over the last several years, we've gotten over $600,000 in grant money. On the top right, you see your volunteer firefighters spent approximately 1,200 hours of volunteer time for a savings to the taxpayer of about $30,000. We use part-time employees as much as possible. Your part-time employees in 2019 worked around 3,500 hours, which is a savings of about $54,000. We use cooperative purchasing at every opportunity. As a matter of fact, the ladder truck that we purchased in 2015, we used cooperative purchasing on that project and saved us around $140,000. So Lieutenant Smith works on your grants. He's very passionate about it and works tirelessly to make sure that we avail ourselves to all opportunities. The only CIP request that I have is to replace the 2010 Chevy staff truck for $65,000, and that money would come from the general fund. I'm done talking unless you want me to answer questions.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just say something. I'm always harping on the police and fire department about saving money, because there are two biggest ticket items in the city for the taxpayers. I do appreciate all the work that you guys have done. The grant writing on both and the city at large is pretty amazing. We do a lot of work to make that happen. Definitely appreciate the decrease from this year, although the capital decrease of the $55,000 is really just putting it off to later. But still, even without that, still 30 grand. So that's pretty exceptional. I thank you for working so hard to make that happen.
Thank you for that, Mr. Tabor.
Sure.
Any other questions?
What is the exhaust system? I guess I'm not.
So the one that you have now is a large set of filters that hang up in the fire station. So I call the firefighters the frogs. So the diesel exhaust is what we're really concerned about. Diesel exhaust is a class 1 carcinogen. We know it causes cancer. Back when I was around, you didn't even think about it. You didn't even think about cleaning yourself after a structure fire, which is just unreal. But that diesel exhaust comes out, and it's literally a door away from where you live and where you sleep. So we've started figuring out about 20 years ago, we probably need to filter that stuff out of here. So we hung these filters. We actually got a federal grant to hang these filters in the bay. So the frog stands in the bay and does the work. As the diesel exhaust is emitted from the truck, it gets filtered, and there's monitors in the bay that once it gets below a certain hazard chemical level, then it will shut the filters back off. The system that we want to purchase is a direct connect exhaust system. It connects to the diesel exhaust, and it pipes it out, and it never leaks into the building. So it's just right out the top. We think that, the cost goes up, you put it off, the cost goes up. It's been pretty stable, which kind of worries me a little bit, but I think it's going to be somewhere around 75 or 80,000, being very conservative, to do the entire building.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Chief Russell. Appreciate it. Okay. Now, number 14, we go into executive session. We are to to item 14, that is executive session for the purpose of consultation with the city attorney for discussing related to, for discussion related to attorney-client privilege. Can I get a motion to recess into that session?
Mr. Mayor, I, Homer, move to recess into executive session for consultation with the city attorney pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. The session is to include the governing body, city administrator, assistant city administrator, director of community development, and the city attorney. The open meeting will resume at 8:55.
Second.
Okay. A motion was made by Homer, seconded by Tim, to recess into executive session for consultation with the city attorney pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship. The session is to include the governing body, city administrator, assistant city administrator, director of communication development, and the city attorney. The opening of this meeting will resume at, and he said it right? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
What?
What, did I get confused? Session, further discussion, all those, oh, well, never mind. I went to sleep back there. All right, members' items. I guess we're down to members' items. Let's start to my left. Mike?
I have none tonight.
Tim?
Tim, you have any?
I do not.
Homer?
I just want to say, again, congratulations to all the seniors out there. Since our last meeting, there was a lot of drive-through graduations. We had Memorial Day and stuff like that to have, parties, if you will, at. So, again, congratulations to those seniors. This is a different time that we're all dealing with, but again, we'll be better on it on the other side. To the point of the parks, I'm definitely excited for those to get open. I do have 3 small kids, so to Mayor and Troy's points, on opening and stuff, yeah, there is a personal goal, but also to keep the city safe. I don't take lightly those decisions that we have to make. It helps that I have those 3 little ones at home to help guide, but at the same time, it's just an education thing more than it is, this is the way I have to do it. So, but I appreciate staff and helping us get through all this, and we'll be better, guys. Thank you.
Would you mind letting me go last? Because I have a few things.
No items.
Just thanks to the city staff for making it possible for us to have an in-person meeting. I think we've all been excited to kind of get back together and allow the public to come in for our meetings again instead of watching via the internet, and keeping us updated with all the legislative updates because they seem to come every half hour, so we appreciate that. Thanks.
All right. I just want to make sure y'all know I wasn't insinuating that you would make a decision off of emotion. I would never do that. I think too highly of y'all. I just wanted it to be in our minds. I did not, if I offended you, I did not mean to do that. I just wanted us to think clearly about what we were doing, and myself included, because I'm all over the place on this COVID thing. So, as you know, where I stand in the parking lot every morning. So I didn't mean to insinuate that if I did. And if I offended anyone, I apologize. Troy.
Sure. That ain't gonna work. So, it's actually, we're liaisons for a lot of different groups, and just happened to be that several that I'm a part of met. So, the Regional Economic Area Partnership, REAP, it's 28 cities and county governments that work together for the region for economic development, as well as lobbying to the state and federal governments for various things for us. And just a couple quick things. We had a federal and state representatives and Sedgwick County representatives that kind of talked about a couple quick things, and I'll be quick. Talked about money that's coming in from the federal government, and I think I'd sent some stuff to Jennifer regarding that. That's new money that came in for pandemic spending, and including for cities and counties. Pete Meitzner also discussed a little bit in Sedgwick County what they were looking at doing with or how they were going to review what's being done with the stimulus money in Sedgwick County, to how it's being used and make sure it's being used correctly, and maybe learn from that. So that report, when it's done, is probably something we should look at. I think it'd be really interesting for us to look at it. Last 2 things there is the Eisenhower Airport. I don't know if you guys knew how bad it was going on right now, but they've had around 100 travelers a day, 14 different direct flights. Normally have about 35 in full planes. So it's also in a little bit of a bind because it's new, and they were, they were relying on passengers to pay for it. So long term, I don't know what's going to happen. They got some money for it, not enough. So we'll see what happens to the airport in the next couple of years, based on what's happening with COVID. Second item would be the the Chamber. Chamber did two pretty amazing things. One is they kind of headed a task force. I believe Jenny was a part of that. Created a playbook for area businesses to use for phased reopening, and it's really it's put together by obviously Jennifer and Becky Wolf, but as well as business owners and other people to come up with good ideas and tips on how to reopen safely. Also, they've been keeping at having a few meetings or a couple meetings a week with business owners and people that are members for various reasons. One, to keep our spirits up, see what everybody's doing, keep communication open between the different businesses, and it really helps at the end of every meeting. You see that everybody's in better spirits and usually has a few new ideas. Wichita Metropolitan Planning Organization, or WAMPO, they put together an executive overview of what they do and where they're headed over the next 20 years. It's only 4 pages long, and I'd recommend that we all read it. It's about roads, so it might seem a little bit boring, but it's pretty interesting anyway to me. The last item is kind of a quick state report. There were 2 bills that were currently passed. One of them was one that I had spoken about before, and me and Jenny and Chief, we'd actually went up and talked with the committee that was looking at it, and it's called the Truth in Taxation Bill, but in my opinion, it should be called the How to Confuse Everyone During an Election Year, so as to what the tax rate really is, in order to add a paragraph to your re-election campaign mailers, in order to look like you actually accomplished something this year. But what you've actually done is passed another ridiculous bill brought by the Kansas Policy Institute, which costs taxpayers money and does more harm than it actually does for the citizens of Kansas. Now, that's really long, and that's probably we didn't use that, but absolutely that's what it does. Couple quick notes on it. For example, if there is a single home built in the city of Andover, one, or if there is an additional penny that could be, I guess, assessed because maybe somebody modified their home or business, then we're required to have additional meetings, information sent out to everyone. So in reality, for no reason whatsoever, they're adding time and tax to our citizens to, again, put a little bullet note on everyone that sent out a re-election mailer that says, hey, look what we did. And it's very frustrating, and it's completely wrong. There's reporting requirements in the bill for residents to see what their current and previous taxes were on their property, but lo and behold, that already exists and you already get it. So it's there for no reason whatsoever again. The bill creates a brand new taxing name called the neutral tax rate, which when it comes down to it, the citizens of Andover has asked the city to do what they want us to do for them in the city, whether it be the amphitheater or the park or the new fire truck or the roads and streets or the parks. The citizens of Andover ask us to build, maintain, make sure the roads are great, with an understanding that things cost money and that's what the taxes go towards. So again, this is something that without even a question to a citizen, or I don't know if any one of us here has heard from our state representatives regarding this and had a real discussion, but I don't think anyone, the councilor or the mayor has. But they're trying to represent us without even talking to us, and it's ridiculous. But who they are talking to, by the way, is the Kansas Policy Institute and the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, which are both funded by a lobbyist group, which I'm not going to name who they are. And by the way, one of them pays the salary of one of the senators that represents us. So that's really interesting too. Just thought I'd throw that out there. And lastly, on this item, the state actually exempted themselves from having to do the exact same thing that they are requiring us all to do. If anybody wants to add to that, I think that Jennifer's picking up a little microphone there. If you don't mind, that'd be great.
I was just going to also say schools were exempt from it as well. And so Troy is right. If we use $1 more in a year than we did a year before, what their intention is we'll give that back to the taxpayer. And if we're not going to do that, then we have to go through this process. So I would anticipate we'll go through this process every year. It will mean our budget won't be due until September, if I understand the process at this point. And so we will let the county treasurer know in July that we intend to use additional tax dollars. We will have our truth in taxation hearing, which seems eerily similar to a budget hearing, in August, and then we will provide our budget to the state in September.
Thank you. And to reiterate, there's two groups, the Kansas Policy Institute and the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, that brought about this bill. They push very similar bills continuously through whomever it is that they're paying for their campaigns, and they did the same with this. And one of the lovely things that the Kansas Chamber of Commerce gentleman said while we were there was, all cities know how to do is tax, tax, tax. So these roads out here, everything we talked about today, helping people, whatever, we do a heck of a lot more than just tax, and that is so offensive, and yet our representatives listen to that. And that's what made them change, or that's what made them pass this bill. I think it's crap, and I wish that they would just go away. Excuse my language on that. I'm just throwing it
Don't
out.
forget, the highest tax rate in our town is the school district, and they're exempt.
Yeah.
I had two of them tell me that it would indeed hurt commerce, and they don't care, whatever it takes to move up and move on, or whatever it is. And one recently, just act like, it was out of their hands when their name was on the bill.
Yeah, they actually, yeah.
That's fact. I was very disgusted. I said the conversation was, they stated it would hurt commerce, and then later I said, even you stated it would hurt small business, and the reply was, no, I said it would hurt commerce. I'm kind of stupid and slow, but they seem to be intertwined, if you ask me. But what do I know? But thank you for, I appreciate that.
Sure.
I
I'm
do.
almost done.
No.
I swear I'm almost done. I'm so frustrated with this, and I'm angry, and it's just insane that they did this, but it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, considering what it is that they do up there anyway. It was, by the way, it was during this emergency marathon 24-hour meeting, right? So an interesting aspect of it would be that there was a Kansas House bill, actually 2118, that was put together that had to do with helping the aerospace industry. And what happens sometimes in the State House is they will take an existing bill that everybody understands, and at the last minute, somebody votes to gut the bill, take all the text out of the bill, and shove something else in there that they've not even read, and then vote on it. That's what they did. You had 2 people voted against this. Everyone else voted for it. And probably less than 10% of the people even know what's in it. And it's disgusting. And that's what our state is doing right now. So screw that they're there for 24 hours. Excuse my language again, I'm sorry. Okay, so the last item that I have to bring up too is regarding cell tower construction, which is another item that during that 24 hours they pushed through. Oh, I'm so sorry. Your daughter's here. Okay. With cell towers, my understanding is that they no longer have to go through a permitting process to use the right-of-way to put up whatever structure they want. There's a size limit, but they can just basically put up utility poles and throw whatever they want on there. And then other utilities can come behind and drop their own lines on their poles, which they can do anything. They can go in front of your home and put a 6-foot wide box on your front lawn, and you can't do anything about it. And we as a city no longer can do anything about it. This is what these junk lobbyists push through, and our representatives are up there messing up cities. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. I don't know how we could vote for these same people again.
The cities they live in.
The cities they live in did not come and talk to us. How will this affect us? What can we do? Well, let's come up with a solution together. That would be great. We could sit down and have that discussion. Not a thing. It's, here, can you pay for this next mailer for me? I'm getting reelected this year. Yes, okay, I'll sign your bill for you. That's what happened. In addition, the city has historically charged franchise fees for the use of utilities, and they do that because we maintain them. You know, we make sure that everything's safe, that it goes with the aesthetics of what our city is supposed to look like or what our citizens have asked us to do. All out the window. All out the window. They can put whatever they want there now. For no reason. Just, you know, a couple extra dollars in their pocket. Once again, your state legislators hard working to figure out how to appease the lobbyists which pay their bills instead of us, the public. That's all. Pretty frustrated.
Yes. Ditto.
And they don't miss an instant of sleep. And me and Jenny had that conversation the other day when the bill passed. We said, now, since no one has read it, we'll find out what's in it. You know, and it just ties our hands up and makes it harder for us to take care of our citizens. So, we need you to be our voice, Troy.
Really? You want me to yell and cuss at 'em?
Sold me, man.
It's frustrating.
It is. Thank you. I appreciate that, Bill. I do.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, I did forget to mention on my member item turn that the barber shops are open.
Wow, really? After that fine
It's all good.
speech, you're going to take a shot at the mayor? Huh? Really?
Was that a shot at the mayor? That wasn't a shot at the mayor. It's an excellent point.
Do you still have the powder, Susan?
Oh, man, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank y'all.